The Philadelphia Phillies have some very important decisions to make with their position players this offseason. Who stays and who goes to make this team into a true championship contender? Discover who in today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Phillies is your number one place for daily, Monday through Friday, Philadelphia Phillies content. Appreciate you checking us out. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philadelphia for over 6 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. It's time to figure out who's staying and who's going, or at least who I think should stay and go, from the 2025 Philadelphia Phillies position players. We will do the pitchers later on in the week. Actually, we'll get into them tomorrow. So make sure you check out tomorrow's episode as well. But there are some really, really tough decisions for the Phillies to make this offseason with how their year ended. We're going to start in the infield. Who needs to change their scenes and who needs to remain with the Phillies? Then the outfield gets even trickier because pretty much every spot is up for grabs in the Phillies outfield this offseason if things go the way they seem like they're going to go. So we'll get into the outfielders coming up next. And what's the Phillies' rooting interest in the World Series? Blue Jays, Dodgers. There are two very different paths that you as a Phillies fan could choose to take. Which one is the right one? Maybe both. So we will get into that. But stay or go is always a tough time of year because it's heartless by nature. It's not, hey, I like this player. I have his jersey. Oh, man, he's been with the team for so long. No, we're trying to build a true World Series winner. Is that possible with this Phillies team? Well, only time will tell, but we're going to do our best to put the best 26 guys on this roster. And there are some people that have been here for a while that need to not be on this team next year. The infield is intriguing because you have a couple of spots completely locked down. So let's go through the no option but to stay infielders. First base, Bryce Harper, no option but to stay. Shortstop, Trea Turner, no option but to stay. Those contracts are not being moved. Edmundo Sosa, you might be like, Connor, you just went to a depth guy, third behind Trea Turner and Bryce Harper. He is staying. He is too valuable in his role as the either platoon partner with Bryson Stott at second or just a general utility infielder to go anywhere else. He's still under team control. He will be here. Now let's go to everybody else. Catcher, JT Realmuto. This is the first big decision that we will talk about, and it's a momentous one. There have been a lot of comments about JT Realmuto's contract situation this year, not from him, but from people who talk about this Phillies team, myself included. He is a free agent this offseason and an incredibly valuable one. Maybe not monetarily, but in actuality for the baseball team. He does an incredible job of managing this pitching staff. He does. He takes care of everything from calling the pitches to managing the personalities to knowing opposing hitters. It's just such a unrecognized art that is hard for you to, it doesn't show up in the box score anywhere, right? But it's hard to miss when you see how good this pitching staff has been. That's coming from somewhere. And part of it is their own talent. Part of that is the guy behind the dish is as good as anybody in the sport at managing pitching staffs. He is. He knows these guys like the back of his hand. Not to mention, he's still a plus defensive option at catcher. And when you look at his numbers from this past season, he had a slow start to the year, but how he finished, he hit 257 on the year, 315 on base percentage, 384 slugging. If you think those are low numbers for JT Realmuto, they are based on his career averages. But when you look at what a catcher is to most teams around baseball, you'd be hard-pressed to find many full package players better than JT Realmuto at that position. Now, age-wise is a little bit tricky. He's 34. He will turn 35 before next season. So are you giving him a 2 or a 3-year deal like it seems like he's looking for? I think you have to. I don't know that there's a better option that you can find right now. Bringing him back seems to be the easiest way for the Phillies to remain in their contention window. And that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to remain in a contention window. We are not rebuilding. Retooling? Absolutely. Starting this thing over and saying, hey, 2026 is going to be a wash. We're going to lose this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, but we're going to bring in a bunch of guys that maybe one day could play. There's going to be some of that, but it's not going to be the focus of this team. They still are steering into a championship window, according to them. And you know what? According to me. Now, is that window much smaller this offseason than it has been at any point in this era of like the Bryce Harper, Trea Turner, Kyle Schwarber Phillies? Absolutely. But you're already locked in. You got Trea Turner and Bryce Harper paid. You got to try and continue to win now. And JT Realmuto would be a win now catcher. And that's what the Phillies need to do. So I know he's old. He started to get banged up more and more. Can he continue to produce into age 35, 6, 7 seasons? I don't know, but you don't really have another option. So he stays as the catcher of the Philadelphia Phillies. Bryson Stott. Now, this is a real interesting one because Stott seems to be a player that would be possible to be moved, even though he is still under team control. You could say, hey, we're going to trade Bryson Stott for, I don't know, a nobody minor league arm just to clear up that spot at second base. But I'm not doing that. I think Bryson Stott stays with the Philadelphia Phillies this offseason. And there are a couple of big reasons. One, like I just mentioned, team control. So he is cheap. You're not breaking the bank by keeping Bryson Stott. I'm not trying to find budget options for a team with a $300 million payroll. But when you have a guy under team control that has a platoon partner in Edmundo Sosa, who I already told you is staying, and he plays plus defense. I want you to look around the infield real quick. Is Alec Bohm a plus defender? No. Is Trea Turner a plus defender? No. Bryce Harper at first base, Gold Glove nominee again this year. So you could look at him as a plus defender. I think that's right. But as far as the other 3 spots in the infield, Bryson Stott's your best defensive player. And for that reason, I still want him on this team. Now, is he a year-long platoon player? I believe so. Does that drive people insane because you want to find someone who could start every day? Yes. But there are certain concessions that are made on every roster. And one of the concessions that I believe the Phillies will make is having a platoon at second base. And that's what I think they should do because you can make that work. Now, when we talk about the outfielders, I'm going to have a little different to say about platoons because I think, just a little tease here, that second base should be the only platoon spot on the roster. Let's move on to third base. Alec Bohm, go. You need to change something in the infield, and Alec Bohm's the spot that makes the most sense. He hit 287 this year. Great numbers when everything was all said and done as far as average is concerned, but he slugged only 409. And I can't look at that and say, okay, that's my third baseman. 11 home runs, 59 RBIs. You used to be able to hang your hat on Alec Bohm's a near 100 RBI guy. Who cares if the ball doesn't go out of the ballpark? He's producing runs. He's not doing it anymore. He's not producing runs. And while he is still under team control, you need more power at third base. You need a power right-handed bat to take over that spot at third base. And Bohm is never going to have that power. If you're sitting here waiting for the 25 or 30 home run season from Alec Bohm, you're going to be waiting the rest of your life. He is not going to ever be that player. So you go out and you bring somebody in to play third base who, I don't know, maybe he's a 240, 250 hitter. But can you give me 25 to 30 home runs from the right side? That's the guy that you're looking to find to replace Alec Bohm at third base. And can you do that while keeping the same level of defense? I believe so. Bohm has gotten significantly better defensively as his career has progressed in Philadelphia. But he's not a high caliber fielder at third base. He's an average to above average one. And you can find those guys. So Alec Bohm is a guy that I think you should trade, bring back just some random minor league pieces, open up that spot, and attack that in free agency. It won't be a star, most likely, as we've talked about with the Phillies wanting to keep the payroll around the same point as it was last year. But that is the number one place in the infield where I think you can make a move. There's one other infielder that we're going to bring up who may not be an infielder, but he was mainly one this year. Otto Kemp is such a weird case for the Philadelphia Phillies. Made his debut this year, showed potential. The power numbers kind of look like they could be projectably there, but people are scared of projections for this team. And I understand it. Anyone who's anti-Otto Kemp is probably not saying this guy stinks. And if you are, you're wrong. But you're saying, I don't want to hand over an infield spot, third base, to a guy that, one, is not that good defensively anywhere, and two, is quote unquote projectable based on what he did in AAA and sometime at the major league level this year. I like Otto Kemp. I do. But that's not a guy that I feel comfortable with starting 140 baseball games for this team next year. So does he stay? Yes. Again, because of the contract situation. But do you heap a lot of expectations on Otto Kemp, like you trade Alec Bohm and then give Otto Kemp that position? I'm not there. Do you think he's got a 25 or 30 home run season in him next year? I don't see that type of jump. Even with a full year at third base, I don't see him producing that way. I hope I'm wrong if they go that direction, but I do not want them to go that direction. So he stays, but he does not stay as a starter. He stays as a bench option, just like Edmundo Sosa. So one main spot open in the infield from my thoughts on stay or go. Just to run it down one more time. Realmuto, stay. Harper, stay. Stott, stay. Sosa, stay. Turner, stay. Alec Bohm, go. Otto Kemp, stay. You see why it's going to be tough for the Phillies to make major changes this offseason? Because you're still locked into a lot of guys, at least in the infield. But the outfield is where things really get interesting. We will talk about those names and how in the world do the Phillies make this work in a positive way as we continue today's episode. Let's talk about our friends over at Game Time first, though, because they are the absolute best if you're trying to get tickets to any type of sporting event or any type of event in general. There's nothing like being there in person, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person if it's a sporting event. But actually getting tickets is the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You're always going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I was up in Minnesota this weekend watching the Eagles take on the Vikings on the road, enemy territory, but I felt right at home because I had great seats thanks to Game Time. They made it so easy to get some of the best seats in the house. I knew the price that I was going to pay before I even went to the final screen on the app. It was so simple, and the experience was seamless thanks to our friends over at Game Time. And you can do that for comedy shows, concerts, theater, and all the sports that you want to attend, right? They're the absolute best. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Oh, and guess what? If you use code LOCKEDONMLB, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, and download Game Time today. Outfield, here we go. And this is where the Philadelphia Phillies offseason gets interesting. How do they make this work? Well, let's come up with the spots that are open first. Now, I'm going to count Kyle Schwarber as an outfielder because by trade he is, even though he DHs for the team, just to fit him in one of these two buckets of infield, outfield. Kyle Schwarber's staying. He's staying, he's staying, he's staying. I know he didn't hit in the postseason in games 1, 2, and 4 of the NLDS. I know he's not an average hitter, right? He gets streaky at points. I know he's going to be expensive. And if he wants a 4-year deal, you're going to be paying a guy who is currently 32 years old, but will be 33 when next year starts. 33, 4, 5, 36 if you give him a 4-year deal. That's the backside of a good career, right? And that's a dangerous thing for a team like the Phillies to give that contract to an aging player. But man, he DHs, and listen to these numbers: 56 home runs, 132 RBIs. You are not finding a free agent on the market that can recreate those numbers. You just aren't. And that's why Kyle Schwarber's still going to be here. Not to mention the clubhouse presence, the leadership. It's a no-brainer to still re-sign Kyle Schwarber. I'm sorry, it is. I know people might want to see switch up, but if you don't re-sign Kyle Schwarber, like, what was this team last year without Kyle Schwarber? Are they winning the division? Probably still, because the Mets completely collapsed down the stretch and didn't even make the playoffs, but they would have, I don't know, probably been playing in the wild card round rather than being the 2 seed. They probably would have been a 88, 89, 90 win baseball team rather than a 96 one. Like, he's too valuable in every facet. I know emotionally after that series, people are like, well, you can't re-sign him. He didn't do enough. I'm sorry, but Kyle Schwarber is a must-stay. He's the number one must-stay in this outfield group. But of their free agents, he's the priority. And the Phillies have said, basically, without expressly saying it, they've told you he is the priority of the offseason. Schwarber stays. The rest of the outfielders are another story. Nick Castellanos needs to go. I'm sorry, right? I like Castellanos more than most Phillies fans, I think, and maybe not most Phillies fans, but a large portion of this fan base never really got on board with the Castellanos train. I get it. The personality is kind of grating. He doesn't feel like Philly-ish, I guess, which ultimately shouldn't be held against him, but the production always was because he's very streaky. He didn't produce the power that we thought we were getting when the Phillies signed him years back, and this year he hit 250 with 17 home runs and 72 RBIs. I mean, that's not an awful year from Nick Castellanos, but he was dreadful down the stretch. 27 doubles is not terrible, but for a guy that you gave $100 million contract to, that's not the type of production you expect to get. He's not good defensively. He's aging as well. He has 1 year left on his deal, which means this would have to be a trade. But you eat some of that contract and you move on from Nick Castellanos and you have a new right fielder next year. Is that Justin Crawford? Maybe. But whatever the case may be, Nick Castellanos needs to go. Center field. Harrison Bader needs to go. And this hurts my heart. It really does. This is the one guy where I look at it and I say, I can't put any of this postseason on him. A pinch hit, big single in game 2 to set up an opportunity to try and win that game. Injured in game 1, but had a solid game 1 until he was removed due to injury. Then just hampered by his lower body injury the rest of the series. He was awesome from the second the Phillies started making him an everyday player. He put together a great stretch, but I don't believe that's the player that Harrison Bader is over 162 games. And I don't want us to get caught up with, hey, you know how it is, right? Have you everyone's been in an airport, right? And you see the person, it's a similar person your age, a cute girl over there. You don't know enough about them, whether or not you want to, I don't know, date them or anything like that or marry that person. But the idea of that person is great. the idea of Harrison Bader is great. The actuality of his production over a long term with this team, I don't believe would pay out the contract that he's going to get. I'd like to see a different swing taken on another player. And that's nothing against Harrison Bader, really. Like, he was awesome, but he was a trade deadline acquisition who did what he was supposed to do here. And I think it's best for the Phillies and Bader to part ways, because I do believe there's a better long-term option in center field. And if you re-sign him, you are not exploring that. I think you can do better than Harrison Bader, even though he was so awesome in a short stretch for the team this year. So Bader, I'm moving on from. Brandon Marsh stays, but he stays as a fourth outfielder. He is not your starter in left field, and I am not platooning. He is a defensive replacement, a pinch hitter against righties, and an injury handicap for other outfielders. But he did enough this past year to show that he deserves a spot on this baseball team, just not to me as a starter. He ended up hitting 280. He had one of the best 4-month stretches in a baseball season, like basically Major League Baseball history when it comes to average. He was, to go from like 089 at the end of April to 280 at the end of the year is remarkable, which is why he still has a spot on this team. But I can't have him start. And on top of that, Max Kepler needs to go. You need a new left fielder this year who is not Brandon Marsh and not Max Kepler. Kepler just wasn't good for like 90% of the year, and he heated up a little bit down the stretch, but I don't think anyone needs to see Max Kepler back in a Phillies uniform. That's the long and short of it. I was surprised he lasted as long as he did. Dave Dombrowski's gamble to keep him on the team and see increased production paid off a little bit, I guess, but I need a bona fide true left fielder. So my outfield next year would be Justin Crawford in one of the corners, whichever one you're more comfortable with him in. New center fielder through free agency. New other corner outfielder through free agency. Brandon Marsh is your fourth outfielder. And then Weston Wilson, I guess, stays as a fifth outfield option, only because, again, under team control, but like that's just more of a default type of thing. I don't mind him being like the final guy on the bench. If you find somebody better, I'm not attached to Weston Wilson, but I can't just be like, go, because one, you're not getting anything by trading him, and two, he's not costing you anything. So that's the stays and goes for the outfield. Again, Schwarber stays, Castellanos goes, Bader goes, Kepler goes, Marsh stays, Weston Wilson stays by default. If I got anything wrong in this evaluation, let me know in the comments on the YouTube. I would appreciate you telling me if I'm crazy or if I'm spot on, but that's how I feel with the stay or go for the position players. Tomorrow, we will do the pitchers. Starters are going to be easy. Relievers are going to be very interesting because they did not get the job done this year, both in the postseason and the regular season. So what do you do there? You can see why this is an intriguing offseason for the Philadelphia Phillies. But two teams are still playing. And coming up next, we're going to talk about the two paths of Phillies fans to pick your World Series rooting interest. I have mine, and I don't feel good about it. We'll talk about that as we continue today's episode. Let's talk about FanDuel first, though, because the NFL season is just rolling right along. We're heading into week 8 already in the NFL. Time flies. And FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We're going to talk about the World Series coming up. Well, you can pick your winner. Will it be LA? Will it be Toronto? LA, the heavy favorites, as they should be. But maybe you think the underdog Jays are going to get the job done. Make that bet. Or what you do is you take that $5 first bet if you're a new user, you put it on something real easy. You don't have to worry about the payout, right? It could be pennies on the dollar. But if you hit that, you're getting $300 in bonus bets. And then you use that to place on futures, spread, money line, props, parlays, all of that fun stuff on FanDuel. They got everything. The payouts are fast and easy and safe. The interface is sleek and helps you find all your bets so easy. And that's why I love FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. By the way, I'd love if you joined part of our Everydayers group. of those who subscribe to Locked On Phillies on YouTube, watch all the episodes. Subscribing is free and easy to do. You just hit that subscribe button on your screen if you're watching on YouTube, and it'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. So that's the way you want to do it to keep up with Locked On Phillies. We're also available wherever you get your podcasts. So if you can't watch, you can still listen, and make sure you're rating and reviewing if you're listening in podcast form. I appreciate everyone who joins us every day here on Locked On Phillies. The World Series begins on Friday, and it is a matchup between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I told you there's two paths for Phillies fans to take here. You can have the spiteful path, or you can have the coping path. Neither of those sound good, but that is what it is at this point. The spiteful path would be rooting for the Toronto Blue Jays, because screw the Dodgers. They knocked us out. I hate that team and what they've built, and a lot of that comes from jealousy, but guess what? I'm jealous of the Los Angeles Dodgers, as are every other baseball fan group in the entirety of the world. They are the premier baseball organization, not just team, organization, because they do everything the right way. And for some people, that ticks you off. And for me, that ticks me off. So the Toronto Blue Jays, if you're just wanting to see the Dodgers not win it all because, yeah, screw them, that's why. Like, that is your rooting interest. And I think a lot of Phillies fans will be on that side. I don't want to see the Dodgers be successful. They ended our season. But there's another path, the coping path. And this is where it gets really interesting. And this exists only for Philadelphia Phillies fans. I think for everybody else in the world that is not a Dodgers fan, they're Toronto Blue Jays fans. Unless you have something against Canada specifically, or the city of Toronto, or one of those individual players on that Blue Jays team. I mean, they got a couple former Phillies, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Jeff Hoffman. Like, that should be your rooting interest, right? Why would you ever root for the Dodgers? Here's why, if you're a Phillies fan. The Brewers got swept in 4 games in the NLCS. They scored a total of 4 runs in that series. They got smoked. Not even a contest for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Put up less of a fight significantly than the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, let's say you want to root for the Phillies to look as close as they possibly can to be the second best team, right? Because there could be an argument made, and you might say, oh, it's loser stuff. It may be reality when everything's all said and done. A reality that nobody wants to hear, but reality nonetheless. If the Dodgers were to go out and comfortably beat the Blue Jays, 4 games, 5 games, and they make light work of the American League champions, how does that make the Phillies look? It might be just a consolation aesthetic thing. And I say might be. It is a consolation aesthetic type of rooting interest. But at the same time, if you ask me in my heart of hearts, what do I want to happen in the World Series? I'm picking the coping path. I'm rooting for the Dodgers to win, and I'm rooting for the Dodgers to win comfortably. Because if and when I see that, I can tell myself the Philadelphia Phillies were closer than we gave them credit for. And it sucks, right? I feel dirty even saying that. And I know nobody really wants to hear it with this baseball team. And this is not me saying, give Dave Dombrowski credit, give Rob Thompson credit, give these players credit. No, it's not about them. It's about us as fans trying to justify that we believed in this team for a reason, right? They actually were close and unfortunately ran into an all-time team. But if the Dodgers take care of business quickly, they're an all-time team. And then if by some miracle the Phillies don't have to go through the Dodgers next year, you can kind of talk yourself into, well, the Phillies can still be championship contenders. But it's going to be hard to say. The Dodgers aren't still waiting there next year. None of those guys they have are really going anywhere anytime soon. Even though they had the oldest roster in baseball coming into this year, they got a lot of really good young players too. I'm rooting for the Dodgers because I want to be able to say when it's all said and done that the Phillies gave them the best run and therefore can be argued as the second best team. But that's coping. And that feels like loser stuff, even though in my heart of hearts, I can only be honest. That's what I think. If you want to be spiteful, if you want to root against the team that knocked you out, root for the Toronto Blue Jays. I have a feeling that the Dodgers are going to win comfortably in this World Series, and it won't be much of a fight. I'd like to see a good series as just a baseball fan, but I don't think this one goes more than 5, folks. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on with that. I'll mention it sparingly over the next couple weeks as the World Series goes on, or maybe just next week if this World Series ends quickly. It starts on Friday. But that's where I stand. I'm rooting for the Dodgers to win easily to make the Phillies exit from the postseason look better. You can rip me in the comments all you want for that. I can only tell you how I feel. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. Tomorrow, pitchers, stay or go. I will talk to you then on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.